Good evening. This is Traffic and Safety Commission. It is February 6th, and it is actually 8 o'clock. And we're going to start off with a roll call.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
DiTomaso,
Yes.
Blaskamp, McMurray,
Yes.
Carl Timmerman,
Here.
Karen Timmerman,
Yo.
Wagner,
Here.
Chairperson Pincos.
Here. Okay, next we'll go to amendments to the agenda. Does anybody have amendments to the agenda? Okay, move on to item 4, public comments on agenda items. And we have nobody in the public. Therefore, going to public comments on non-agenda items. And again, nobody in the public for comments. Presentation, turning to Bob for Bikes, Pedestrians, and Transit Subcommittee.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Pincos. So the last meeting of the Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee was on January 25th at 6 p.m. And we had a lot of items on our agenda, but we invited Tom Marcucci, who is the former mayor, village president, mayor of Elmhurst, and now a director for PACE, the DuPage director for PACE. And he gave us a presentation about PACE. We had posed the question, what could the subcommittee do to promote the use of PACE 313 and then the other PACE line on Roosevelt Road. And Mr. Marcucci gave a very interesting presentation about PACE, what can be done. He provided us with a lot of information from the staff at PACE. And one of the things that he talked about was, it's called PART, Plan of Action for Regional Transit. And this is a big report that was produced by CMAP at the request of the General Assembly to address a really big fiscal cliff that will be coming in 2026. A shortfall of varying numbers, $750 million, $630 million. We all know that public transit dropped in COVID. It's coming back. In the last month or so, he said that it's rebounded by 8%. So it's coming back, but it isn't what it used to be. But there's this huge funding crisis on how to fund, public transit. And his statement was that even if ridership doubled, they wouldn't be able to close the shortfall. So the acronym is PART, has a lot of recommendations. One of them is the consolidation of the service boards, because there's a service board for PACE, for Metra, and CTA. And to consolidate them together, you would see some savings. So it was really interesting. He thought we could promote Brewfest through PACE. There's a lot of different things that we could do. The other thing he talked about was a program called Ride DuPage. And I had never heard of Ride DuPage. And it's really interesting because the village has a, taxi cab program where you can go somewhere. You can go within the village for a taxi ride for $1. The township has a transportation department. You can ride within York Township. But Ride DuPage is a program where you can ride a PACE bus if you're a senior, or if you have certain income restrictions, you can ride it anywhere within DuPage County. And I had no idea about the program. So he just recently sent information about Ride DuPage. For example, if you have mobility issues, if you're, wheelchair bound, and you have a doctor's appointment, they'll come and pick you up, with a, with a vehicle, with the bus that has the
lift.
the lift for handicap. They'll even provide you with an assistant to help you. There are so many programs that I didn't know about. So Ride DuPage was interesting. And he gave us some interesting ideas on how to promote usage of the pace routes within Villa Park, because, use it or lose it,
Right.
they're dependent on ridership. We did talk about the North School Walk, Roll to School Day, and today, we had a Zoom meeting with Fred Lineweber, the principal at North School, Deputy Chief McCann, myself, and Alan Leishman, the chair, to kind of, would a walk, roll to school day on May 8th, we work, and the PTA was enthusiastic, he was enthusiastic. They actually did something like this back in October, which we didn't know. But so we're going to try and see how we can assist with that. We talked about plans for doing events for Bike Month in May. Station winter access was brought up. This gold shovel program that I mentioned before. I'm not involved in the planning of it, but there was some communication with the Villa Avenue Business District about it. Whether we'll get more snow this year, we don't know, but at least we have a start, like for next winter. And then Commissioner Joe Amore, who's on the DuPage Rail Safety Council, provided us with an update on their most recent meeting. And that's the extent of my report.
I have one question, and in reference to that DuPage ride,
Ride
DuPage, okay, is that free, or is there a minimal amount of money?
It's free if you're a senior, and if you have a certain income level, it's free also. I don't know what the income restrictions are, but I had never heard of it.
Yeah, I heard something of it, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was.
I can send it to you and Kevin if you want to disseminate it to the rest of the commission, because it was really interesting to me. I had no idea about it. I knew about the village program, I knew about the York Township's program, I didn't know about Ride DuPage. So,
Yes, Joe?
Bob, I've had this question asked before. Is there a way we can get Pace to start thinking about visiting the train station on their route? I know
So-
they've got pretty set routes, but
yeah, we've actually talked with them a number of times. Chris, I can't remember Chris's last name now. She's our contact for Pace. Joe Amore, Joe Amore has ridden that line extensively. Our former community development director, Jan Fiola, actually tried to get Pace to, but there's lots of restrictions with Pace. They don't just change a route because one community wants it to be changed. There's a major thing. So folks have, we brought that up as well. Folks have, said, if our development at the train station takes off, it'd be advantageous to have the Pace route go there.
right?
But yeah, at this point, folks have made attempts at getting them to look at changes, and they haven't really been receptive, so.
And my last question is the bus route, I don't remember which one it goes down, St. Charles Road. and then
313.
313, and it goes down Washington Boulevard and into Lombard and stuff?
Doesn't it still go down St. Charles, west on St. Charles to Villa, taking Villa to Washington, and then Washington to Westmore, and from Westmore on to Yorktown, I believe, once it enters Villa Park.
It actually starts at the Green Line.
The
The Green Line goes all the way to Yorktown. We actually did a ride-along with Marcucci a couple of years ago, just to talk with him. We did two of us did a ride-along and with some folks from Pace about that.
So I guess what I was leading into is there seemed to be a possibility that they may discontinue it because of ridership.
You know, there's this big fiscal cliff, you know, and I think I may have mentioned, there's a website you can go to, you can track the ridership on 313.
Okay.
It's coming back, but it's not it's not close to pre-pandemic ridership levels.
Okay.
So,
Any other comments, questions?
I can just say that I hope that they give it a little more time, because that recovery from COVID seems to be moving along slowly, where, you know, they're starting to, some of the businesses are asking people to come back to the office rather than work from home more and more. So, just a comment.
Yeah, I know there's something special going on in Chicago too about special fee for, I believe, low-income people to ride their transportation system. And they were talking about the same thing you were saying, that the ridership is starting to come back, but not that quick. But I guess in '26, they feel that there's be a major problem with funding.
there was federal money that would help subsidize mass transit, and that funding is going away, or is going away.
Yeah.
So there's, something will have to happen with respect to mass transit.
Go ahead.
Now, do they have any kind of where the public knows more about it or can get more information? This is actually kind of the first I've heard about any of this, other than I see the Pace buses going down Washington from time to time. But maybe if they want their ridership to increase, maybe the people need to know somehow. They've got to somehow or other, not actually advertise, but, make the information available. It's probably a lot of
You mean about
people that
Ride to
have
Page?
no idea.
Right, about Ride DuPage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know about it, and I've never seen anything promoted.
Yeah, I just Googled it just a minute ago, and I'm going to read it later.
There's a
It's the first I've ever heard
webpage,
of it. It's probably a fabulous program for a lot of people. They just don't know about it.
Yep,
Okay, thank you, Bob.
you're welcome.
Okay, we're going to move on to approval of minutes. First one up is we need to approve the November 7th minutes.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay,
First by Karen Timmerman, second by Carl Timmerman.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any nays? Okay, so passing that on. Okay, then we're going to move on to the meeting held January 2nd. And has everybody, yes, Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 2nd, 2024.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
Wagner,
I'll second.
second by D. Tomaso.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? We're going to pass that on. Okay, then we get into old business. And I believe we don't have any old business, right?
That's correct.
Okay, just double making sure. And then we're going to move on to new business. Any comments, anybody? We have none on the agenda, so I'm just wondering if anybody has anything to bring up.
I forwarded something just this evening.
I just received that as I was walking up, so
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't get to look at it.
Yeah, so this was an exchange I had with someone via Messenger. Her name is, what's her name? Tricia Little. And this had to do with, there was an issue at the strip mall where Mike's Meat Market is, and there was, they had plowed the lot, they had covered the sidewalk, and I guess there was a hue and cry about it, and I could see that the next couple days, the sidewalk was uncovered, And I mentioned to this resident had a comment. I said, well, you should come to the Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee. And then she went into a whole thing about there are no safe north-south bike routes in Villa Park. So I told her that that's addressed in the Bike and Pedestrian Plan from 2018, but we just haven't got around to funding or identifying proper north-south. But I mentioned Vermont, where we have, and she said that was basically nothing. So I just thought it would be, that the commission should know about that complaint from a resident.
Okay. So is your commission gonna look into it, or your subcommission gonna look into that a little bit further?
I'm sure we're going to talk about it. We'll definitely talk about it. And something I forgot to mention, we had submitted the bike-friendly community application, and we received honorable mention. So we're waiting they give you a report card, and we're looking to see what they come up with on the report card.
Is that for funding too, or is that?
Pardon me?
Would that be for funding? No.
No, they do an evaluation. There's platinum, gold, silver, and then honorable mention, and we made honorable mention, which is
So
the
we must
second
be
time we've
doing
gotten
something
that.
a little bit right.
What's that?
We must be doing something a little bit
Yeah,
right.
right, so we thought we had made some progress, and it was worthwhile to reapply, and so, but yeah, we'll definitely talk about it.
Okay. Yes, Joe.
I've actually had several residents ask me that exact same thing about the north-south, bike trail. And I wasn't really sure what to tell them, because it doesn't, maybe Kevin can answer this better, but it doesn't really look like Ardmore would be wide enough to include a bike lane. And with Villa, you've got the downtown area, which, would be problematic.
So I can actually respond that there are a couple efforts in motion right now. I believe the commission is aware that Villa Avenue is currently under design, and that being Villa Avenue from Wildwood up to North Avenue. That project was awarded federal STP funding a couple of years ago. We've already held one public information meeting, and there'll be a second one at some point in the next few months, once we get to a level of progress with IDOT that we can move forward with that. That proposed project is expected to include bicycle and pedestrian amenities, off-street bicycle and pedestrian amenities. In addition, the village has already been awarded STP grant funding for 2 segments of Ardmore Avenue. The 2 that have been awarded so far, I believe the first priority was Ardmore from Madison up to St. Charles, and then the second was Ardmore from St. Charles up to North Avenue. And it's looking like we will receive funding on the most recent call for projects for STP funding for the remaining segment of Ardmore Avenue from Roosevelt up to Madison. And again, all 3 of those segments include some form of pedestrian and bicycle amenities.
What would that entail?
It'll have to be determined during design, the exact details. Villa Avenue, for example, we're proposing I don't recall if it's 6 foot or 8 foot wide off-street path for pedestrians and bicycle use. And then Ardmore, the 3 segments would come down to what do we have the room for? What would the cost of each potential option be? Those are still very much conceptual.
But these would be actual bike lanes, or not lanes, but bike paths, as opposed to just putting a stripe on the existing street?
As opposed to Sharrows, the Sharrows that are referred to on Vermont Street.
Okay.
Yes, those 4 projects, at least as of right now, based on cost estimates and what funding is believed to be available, include, again, off-street bicycle and pedestrian amenities.
Okay, good.
Question. Is there, like Department of Transportation has rules, regulations, and guidelines for traffic and striping and stuff. Is there for bicycle, is there an actual book of something? Because it's, I'm becoming a lot more aware of these bicycle trails, and I'm starting to see how it's structured in many other towns and how they're doing it, where they're striping it, and I'm paying a lot more attention to it. I was just kind of, some of them seem like they're, wow, how did they figure that versus, hey, that's really kind of nice. I was just wondering if there was a book of guidelines and,
There is a very, very large, extensive, I wouldn't say book, but manual on guidelines. In fact, I had just mentioned, getting through IDOT hurdles and whatnot, and those requirements are a big part of that process. Making sure that every T is crossed, every I is dotted, and IDOT doesn't find any, even minor deviations from the standards that we're supposed to follow.
I'm just noticing that in some of the towns, the bicycle path is right smack dab in the middle of a lane of a busy street. Wow. You can go through Madison, through Lombard, and look at it if you're going east. And it's actually designated in the middle of the lane. And I was wondering how, if there's a set of rules, regulations, I think probably is something.
So I think you're talking about NACTO, is that what you're talking about? NACTO, Kevin?
No, this is within IDOT and within the federal government, there are standards. I'm not sure what do you refer to it?
NACTO?
NACTO.
I think it's NACTO. They have there's a manual on
NACTO?
bike lane, on bike infrastructure, NACTO, I believe it is.
Okay.
I know they have annual conferences. It's a fairly large group.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Okay. And in the bike pedestrian study, they identified Addison as a potential north-south lane, but then you'd have to eliminate one lane of traffic. Yeah. So I don't know how that would go over with motorists.
And then maybe just one other thing worth mentioning. I think the commission's aware that the village is in the process of, concluded a feasibility study for railroad grade separation within the last few months. Has applied for funding for phase one of a potential railroad grade separation project. I think even that phase one effort is something to the tune of $300,000 to $500,000. The construction of the project is estimated to be 20+ million, could be much higher than that depending on what it includes. And that's probably a decade out at this point, given all of the design concerns, funding issues, et cetera. But that is also moving forward. I just wanted to point that out, given that the email noted that there are only 3 routes that cross the railroad, and that potential grade separation project would eliminate or certainly improve bicycle and motor conflicts on those 3 crossings, or whichever of the crossings is selected.
Question? Did they kind of have an idea on which one they're more in favor of, which crossing?
Yes, so Ardmore is the preferred vehicular grade separation location. Certainly poses, I would say, probably more engineering challenges, but in terms of its benefit to the community, it was determined to be the most benefit. Villa Avenue or the train station, the Metro train station itself, were both identified for potential pedestrian grade separations. Obviously, 3 is much more expensive than 1, so I think there will likely be a focus on one of the 3 as a priority going forward. I can't say yet which one that would be.
So Kevin, you mentioned STP funding for, you said Ardmore from, what's the first segment?
So the Ardmore segment that's coming up first is Ardmore from Madison to St. Charles.
Okay,
The one that's received funding that's coming up after that is Ardmore from St. Charles to North Avenue.
okay.
And it's not official yet, but we ranked high enough on the most recent grant call for projects on the SDP program for the segment of Ardmore from Roosevelt up to St. Charles Road. So
Do we have an amount for the funding?
each one of those is in the ballpark of $8 to $10 million total. Villa is also, I believe, 8 to 10 million. So you put all 4 of those STP projects together, we're looking somewhere between $30 and $40 million total.
In grant money?
80% for certain phases of it, yes. But that said, the grant money also adds costs to the various phases of engineering, so there's a trade-off there, certainly.
Okay, so this is gonna be an expensive project for our village.
Going to be very expensive, and it's going to take many years to get it actually implemented at this point, since it has to follow the federal process for everything.
Sure.
Interesting. Did they pick Ardmore because of the location of the two, Great Western and the Prairie Path? Thanks.
That was why, if you're asking why it was chosen for the first project, yes. It ranked higher because of its connections to pedestrian and bicycle amenities and attractors and things like that.
Any other questions? Okay. Sounds good. I don't think we should do anything with the comment from that resident, Ms. Little,
Tricia Little.
Tricia Little, for right now. We'll see what your subcommittee comes up with.
Yeah, we can pass along a recommendation to traffic and safety if you want to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the village has some information, or trying to do certain projects. It's just slow at coming and just typical in planning.
If I may ask a question, is she's referring to the sidewalk right along Villa between the bank and the actual bank of buildings for the store? That's area that you're talking about where the snow is covering the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was the strip mall at the corner of St. Charles and Villa.
Right.
That's what sparked the conversation. I kind of weighed in because there was complaints that the sidewalk was covered. And I kind of mentioned the Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee, and then that evolved into a conversation about north-south bike routes.
They've always done that. I've never been happy about it, but I don't know what else they can.
Well, they actually cleared it the next day.
Yeah, it was
Did
quickly
they?
corrected.
Yeah.
As long as that's,
Actually, they're not allowed to do it, so whatever they do.
right, you shouldn't be covering the public
Right.
access, yeah.
Exactly.
I think a fire hydrant was partially covered as well. Oh, that's not good. So that it was
Accelerated it.
Okay. So then let's move on to item number 10, commissioners' comments. We're going to start with you, Joe, way down at the end.
I'm good. Thank you.
I have
Bob,
nothing
anything
further.
else? Jack?
Something that I have noticed, it was addressed before, and the entrance into the frontage road where they park by the townhomes on North Avenue and Villa Park. And we have the signage, no parking from here going west towards the corner around the bend. And I'm kind of, because I go past there numerous times a day, I notice that the people are now starting to park a little farther. First was the car was over the line by a foot, now it's a few feet, now it's half the car length, now it's 3/4 of the car length, and they're slowly easing back into their old habit. I don't know if we need to have a little bit of
Enforcement.
enforcement on that, maybe issue a few tickets or warning notices to let them know that we didn't forget about that.
I'll make the police department aware of that.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised it hasn't become an issue already, but perhaps it's been a little quiet over there in the last few months, and fire department hasn't had to have been out there and get their trucks in, so.
Okay. And one other thing is, I know we'd mentioned once before about contact for the railroad that crosses at North Avenue and Addison Road.
Yes.
The
Canadian National.
severe corrosion of the bases of their equipment, they just keep adjusting it and it's falling over. It's gonna,
We have passed it along. In terms of whether we get response, we'll keep pushing. We
Okay.
obviously can't force them.
I know we can't, and it's out of our control. All we can do is just keep,
Hester.
I just watch them, they just keep adjusting it, and it's pulling out of the ground. That's it.
Ed?
I got nothing tonight.
Karen?
Early voting starts next month for the primary, so be aware Villa Park Library is in this area for early voting.
Last election, it was anywhere in DuPage County. Does that still hold?
It still holds, that'll be there forever. Anybody who lives in DuPage County can go to any precinct and vote. Doesn't matter if you live in Lombard, you can vote in Villa Park. If you live out in Wheaton and you're heading this way, you can vote in Villa Park. Doesn't matter. As long as you are a registered vote, actually, you can even be registered to vote right there in the precinct at that time.
Is that new?
Pretty much so, yeah.
Okay.
Just to add on to that, I just heard on the radio today, Kane County is also setting themselves up for doing the same thing.
Okay, the only thing is you have to live in the certain counties. You can't live in like Cook and decide to vote in DuPage.
No, I
You have
totally,
to live in the county.
but I'm just saying, they're trying to do the same thing that, because they
It's really
mentioned about
easy to
DuPage
do.
doing it, yeah. So,
Works
but they
good.
have to have a certain population
Could be, yeah.
number in their counties to order to do that.
Well, is this still a trial, or is it?
Oh, no, it's not trial any longer.
Okay.
It's flat out through the whole county.
Okay, so other counties in the state will probably do that too, then?
Yeah,
Well,
we were a trial county.
Early voting, I thought it's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, it's been like that for years now, and
Yeah.
it's really picked up more than people are more aware of it now.
Right.
Bob had his hand up.
Yeah, Bob.
Bob?
Just a question for Kevin. So this STP funding, we're in line for the funding, or we have received, are we, I mean,
The first two Ardmore projects, and Villa as well, have been awarded the funding.
they have been awarded? Okay.
Correct. The third segment of Ardmore is still pending. It's not official yet.
That's the one to Roosevelt?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And that could be possibly fund because I know Ardmore hasn't been dealt with since for many years.
That's correct, yeah.
So feasibly, there could be a widening of Ardmore's possibly, or,
Yeah, again, to sort of the same question that Joey was asking, it's still very conceptual, and
Right.
it'll have to follow the same public information and public outreach process that Villa is following, where there will be at least one, most likely two public information meetings where people can weigh in and give their thoughts and opinions.
thank you.
I'm just gonna piggyback on that. I do know a lot, I deal with a lot of towns in reference to that. And it seems that what they're doing, they're not going into the streets with the bicycle, they're calling it, multi-use, paths, which are usually 8 to 10 feet wide. And that's where they're bringing the bikes and the pedestrians so that they can be using the same path.
Would that
So
would that be like just expanding the sidewalk?
I mean, there's different ways of doing it, and I don't know what it all is, but I have been involved, our company has been involved with different villages and IDOT projects, that's what they have been doing, and they call them multi-use paths. And basically, they're, like I said, they're 8 to 10 feet wide, and that's where they're basically trying to get the bicyclists and the pedestrians on those
Same.
paths and give them enough room so that they can share between the two of them. And you might want to,
No, that's pretty accurate, so.
so it wouldn't surprise me that's what they're going to do with Ardmore.
I'm just trying to picture how that would fit on Ardmore.
Some sections, not all, but some sections of Ardmore do have very wide parkways.
Yes.
The right-of-way is pretty deep in a couple locations. Looking at every location in each of those corridors as part of design is going to be a big part of the design process.
Carol, any more?
I have nothing.
Okay. And the only thing I have to say is just this weekend, on Thursday, I was going down Addison Road, I think at Vermont, and the first time I've ever seen it, somebody go right through the stop sign at about 45 miles an hour.
Wow.
And I mean, not even thinking about, I was just watching them and I was like, I don't think this person's gonna stop. What's the next move? And it totally shocked me.
On Addison,
On Addison.
where we've got the double flashing stop signs on each approach.
Right.
No, I've looked at that, I live right by there, so I've actually gone and watched that intersection, and it really comes down to people just either not paying attention, or in a more minor sense, they don't know what to do when they're at a four-way stop and there's 4 cars. They all look at each other.
No, I was just going,
I know, it's,
I was just,
but what you're talking about, yeah, there's people, they just aren't paying attention. They see the signs, you can't miss them. And there's not even just a sign with the lights around it, there's a sign that, 150 yards ahead that says coming soon. They're
So-
just not paying attention.
And along with that, I was gonna mention, because like I said, it was just this weekend, one of the, stops, it's the stop sign, going southbound,
At Sunset.
that doesn't, it's not flashing anymore?
Yeah, we just, I don't know if the commission noticed, Public Works just installed 2 new flashing stop signs at the intersection of Ardmore and School in front of the library. And where I was going with that
Right.
statement was we just got a shipment in this year, and one of the signs from that shipment will be used to replace the one that has not been working at Sunset.
So you have to replace the whole sign and everything?
We had been trying to replace parts, but that particular install has unfortunately completely fried and needs to be replaced.
Okay. So, other than, yes, Matt?
I'll talk to Kevin offline.
Okay, other than that, I'm done.
I have nothing.
Kevin, okay. And with that, do we have a motion
So
to,
made.
Seconded.
all
Carl
in,
and Karen.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, it's officially, closed at 8:37. We'll say 8:37. Thank you, until next week, which is, I believe, March 5th. Thank you.